Moses was the first to record and preserve God's divine handiwork. The Ten Commandments were to be stored in the Ark of the Covenant, while the remainder of the written law was to be kept alongside the Ark. The Bible states in Deuteronomy, in the 31st chapter, it says, "When Moses had finished writing the words of this law in a book to the very end, Moses commanded the Levites who carried the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord, take this book of the law and put it by the side of the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord your God, that it may be there for a witness against you." Now, after Moses' death, his successor Joshua continued to record God's work among the Israelite people. This process continued throughout the history of the nation of Israel. Eventually, professional scribes began copying the law and storing copies in the temple and then later in synagogues. It's worth noting that Old Testament scribes followed strict guidelines when producing copies of the law and other Old Testament books. These guidelines included that every letter and every word of the original manuscript were counted. If the copy did not match the original count, it would be destroyed. Every word had to be verbalized before writing it. No word could ever be written from memory. Every copy had to be reviewed within 30 days of completion. And if as many as 3 pages required corrections, the entire manuscript would be destroyed. Now, let's take a quick overview of the history of the translation of the Word of God. Okay, so we're going to start in 332 BC when Alexander the Great conquered Egypt and Palestine, and he began to universalize Greek culture and its language. Then in 255 BC, the Old Testament was translated into Greek. Then in AD 49, writers began writing the New Testament, and this primarily occurred in Greek as well. In AD 350, we have the earliest evidence of combining of the Old and New Testaments, although the exact date is not known. Now, as languages changed over time, newer translations were needed to fit those languages, and this eventually leads us to modern English translations. Now, one piece of historical evidence that demonstrates the accuracy of later manuscripts is the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls are ancient writings found in caves near the Dead Sea. The writings were preserved in jars and discovered by shepherd boys in 1947. Within the Dead Sea Scrolls, there was a complete copy of the Old Testament book of Isaiah. And although the copies were dated to be up to 1900 years old, the copy of Isaiah paralleled our modern Old Testament in more than 95% of the text. And the other 5% just had to do with spelling variations. So in our following video, we're going to answer this question. Can I trust the Bible?